the inflection points was when you stopped being, a dude trying to earn money and find some independence, and you had a partner, and how that, impacted the financials, either from like a cost saving measure, from a double income measure. I mean, I think listeners could pretty intuitively figure out what happens when, two people share a journey together and the benefits of that. So what I want to kind of ask is, for you personally, where did you feel the impact the most? Was it on the income side? Was it on the cost saving side? Was it on the motivational side? Like, what transformed the most for you?
Yeah, so like you said, everyone's probably aware of the benefits of teaming up with someone else. You can spread some of those everyday living costs across two people, whether it's sharing housing or even sharing a car and stuff like that. So I think that's relatively obvious, so we don't need to really get into that. The other things that impact you in sometimes ways that you don't expect or might not be aware of if you haven't been in this situation before is you have to compromise with the other person, because obviously you're two different people with two different mindsets and sometimes even two different sets of goals coming together. So you can't just operate in a state of like, I'm going in this direction, you have to follow. You have someone else to listen to, and you kind of have to meet them in the middle and get on the same page as best you can. That doesn't always happen, but you have to do your best to try and achieve that anyway. So I would say that how that kind of came to be, or how that fleshed itself out in reality, was that I'm much more of a, I suppose, like a hardcore person when I'm focused on something. I'm a bit more, I get that kind of tunnel vision. And so
yeah, you're unbearable.
Yeah, exactly. And especially like in the early days, I was just completely tunnel vision. I'd pretty much do anything it took to get to where I wanted to go. So that was how I was operating. And my partner's way more of a, what I'll call a normal person. So is
it kind of a case of, sure, there's all these benefits to it that are obvious, but there's a flip side of that that's easy to gloss over, which is the convergence of, non-identical ideals and values, objectives.
Yeah, 100%. There's definitely two sides to that coin. I think sometimes people think that it's easier for couples, and I can see why, because of the spreading of costs. That can definitely help. But I wouldn't necessarily say that it is actually easier, because it's harder to make decisions, because now you've got two people that have to come together to make the decision, and two people's values and kind of things that you have to mesh together and try and make two people happy rather than one. So it's definitely, you don't have the same sort of autonomy to make the decisions, whether it's around working as many hours as you like, because you can't do that. You have to spend time with this other person, or you don't really have a relationship. Or whether it's spending as little as you like because you're trying to ramp up your savings rate as much as possible. You can't really do that if the other person isn't that into it. So it's definitely pros and cons to it. I think it's kind of glossed over too much, or assumed too much, that the couples have the advantage, when I don't believe that's necessarily true, depending on the individual.